Welcome to section 2. In this section, we are going to focus on understanding the Git Lifecycle. We are still in the Git and GitHub projects. In understanding the Git Lifecycle, we are going to start with looking at the working directory. The first thing, of course, you need to know is that for you to start or to understand the Git Lifecycle, you must know how to create a working directory. This working directory is your starting point. It is where you are going to put your local files. These are all the files that pertain to the project. And this is going to help you a lot, especially when you want to make some new changes, you want to include or add more new files, or you want to delete existing one. When you're done with creating a working directory, you move to the next life cycle, which is the staging area. The staging area is where we prepare the changes that we want to commit. We use this command called git add, which we are going to use when we come to creating the new repository or working with an existing repository. And when you use this command, you're able to add the specific changes, or you're able to stage those changes. Staging is important because it allows you to group the changes logically before committing them. You need to understand something we call local repository. A local repository allows you to commit and version the history. We use the git commit command to be able to save the changes that we have already been able to stage, and we want to do so in the local repository. It's important to understand that every commit has a unique hash, or what we call the £, and it usually contains a snapshot of the entire project. After understanding what a local repository is, it is now time we understand what a remote repository is. When we are able to push these files and folders, or what we call a local repository, to the internet, it will now become a remote repository. A remote repository is usually hosted on platforms like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. In our case, we are going to use GitHub. To be able to push a local repository to become a remote repository, or to push a local repository to some of these hosting platforms like GitHub, you need to use the command git push. When you use this command, you're able to upload the local changes to the remote repository. A remote repository is very vital because, as we saw earlier, it helps us to enhance collaboration. Collaboration means when you are able to push this local repository to become a remote repository, anybody who has the link to this remote repository can now be able to access the files and folders that are connected to the specific project, regardless of their location. And that's very good for collaboration. When you do so, you also create a backup. In case anything happened to the local repository, you still have a copy in the internet. We now move to fetch and pull. Sometimes we make changes either to the local or remote repository. When you do so, specifically, if there is some changes that have been made to the remote repository, and those changes are not available in your local repository, you need to synchronize both the repository before you can be able to push the new changes to the remote repository. To do so, we have two commands that are very important. The first one is what we call the git fetch. This git fetch command is going to help you to get the remote changes, and you can bring them to the local repository. However, we can also use a git pull, and a git pull is a combination of git fetch and git merge. It means when you use a git pull, it's going to bring the changes to the local repository, and at the same time, we'll be able to merge those changes straight to your working directory. We are going to see how this happens. Then, of course, you need to understand merge and branch. We already know that Git is very important because it helps us to be able to work in what we call parallel development. It means more than one person can work on the same project. To do so, you need to be able to create new branches that are connected to the main branch that contain the main code base. We are going to see how to create new branches, of course, as we continue with this section. You can use a git merge. Let's say you have created new branches, and of course you have made some changes. You can combine those changes using the git merge command. And these changes, of course, can be combined from different branches into the main branch where you made the branch that you are working on. So we're going to see this again as we continue. Number 7, you need to know how to resolve the conflict. As you know, Git, we are not the only one who are working on the project. A project can consist of 7, 5, 10 people. As far as we are working with different people, conflict is going to be possible. Why? Because you don't know exactly when somebody has made the changes to the remote repository. Therefore, you might still be working on your local repository and you happen to be behind. And this, of course, usually causes conflict when you are trying to merge the changes to the main code base. Luckily, Git is very good and is going to help us to manually resolve the conflict. And after, of course, resolving the conflict, Git is going to help us to merge the changes to the main code base. Now we move to something we call the pull request. I have written it as optional, but it's not optional. You need to understand how pull request works. Pull request is usually used for collaborative missions. It is usually on platform like GitHub, and users can always propose the changes, and these changes are usually proposed through pull request. In simple terms, a pull request is like a message you are sending to your team, telling your team that you have made some changes or you have proposed some changes to the quality code base, and you like them to review the changes before you can merge them to the main code base. Therefore, if that has happened, the team is going to carry out what we call the code review process. During the code review, discussions are going to arise, and these discussions will be focused on the changes that you have proposed. If there are no issues with the changes and everybody agree the changes are okay, then you are going to have an opportunity to merge the changes into the main branch of what we call the main code base. And now, of course, we come to the end of the Git lifecycle. Now, here we are going to do some practice we're going to be creating new branches. To be able to do this, I would like you to come here and look for your File Explorer. Click on it. This is my File Explorer. Go to the desktop, right-click on the desktop, all the way to the bottom. It's not a must. Your system is going to look like this. Show more option in my case so that I can see everything. And look for this feature called New. This feature is going to allow you to create a new folder. Click on it. Name this folder Git Project Tutorial. Immediately you do that, enter, and it's going to be created. Now, what you need to do is to right-click on the folder. Again, I'm going to show more options. And what I'm looking for is the Git bash. I'm going to click on the Git bash, and this terminal is going to open. For you to have this terminal, you need to install Git. Of course, we saw how to install Git in section 1 of this series of videos. I'm going to increase the font size. I'm going to increase the window size, and then I'm going to increase the font size by doing Control+. As you can see, the font size is now bigger. I'm going to run this command ls, which should list the content in this folder that we just created. And of course, it's empty. I'm now going to use this command called code space dot. And the reason I'm using this is because I want to connect to my Visual Studio Code and open a new window where I can use this folder. So if I enter, of course, it's going to open a Visual Studio Code. And of course, you can see here is my folder that we just created in our desktop. I don't need this welcome message. Now from here, what you need to do is to open a new terminal. You can do so. You can see your terminal. It matters with the font size of your words. In this case, I have bigger font size. Therefore, some of the features are hidden. All I need to do is to click on these 3 dots. And of course, now I can see my terminal. Click on new terminal. And of course, you're going to have terminals open. Of course, we went through the Visual Studio Code, and we saw that this portion is editor portion. This is a portion we keep our folders for the project. This is our terminal, and these are some of the plugins that you can install to enhance your coding process or to enhance your ability to write the code for your specific project. There is something we saw in section 1, and that is we do have different terminals here. We can use PowerShell. However, if you click here, you can see that there are a few other terminals that you can use. In my case, I'm going to use Git bash because it's going to help me to type or to run what we call the bash commands. Now, we can run the ls, and again, you can see that again is empty. I can run this command, print in working directory, and I can be able to see that this is actually the folder that we created. It is actually in desktop and is in the OneDrive. So now this becomes our working directory. Let's go back to the notes. We're going to create a new branch, but before that, so let's come back here. As you can see, we have one branch here called dev shopping cart. To be able to see how many branches you have, you can just do git branch, and you see that we have different kind of branches here. We have this, this, and this. Most cases, you might have the master. You might not have the main. Of course, you might not have this one unless you have created this one. And you might not have this one unless you created this. So now, I want to go back to main. And all I need to do is to say git checkout main. And of course, as you can see, now we have the main branch here. I'm going to reduce the font size a little bit, Control minus. And then, of course, you can see the main branch. Now, let's go and create new branches. We can start by saying git branch and the name of the branch. All right, we come here and say git branch. Which name do you want to give to your branch? You can give it a C, master. And now, of course, when you come here and say git branch, you are going to see that master has been created. That is the first thing you need to understand. You can switch from this branch main to master by simply doing git checkout master. And now, of course, you can see we are now in the master branch. You can create other branches. Let's say git branch. Let's say we have a feature. We are working on a shopping cart feature. You can create a branch called shopping cart. And of course, if we say git branch, you're going to see that this has been created. You can switch to it by saying git checkout shopping cart, enter, clear this. Now, of course, you can see that now we are in the shopping cart branch. Let's go back to the notes. We are done with this. We are done with creating a new branch. This command will create a new branch, but is not going to switch to it. If you want to create a new branch and switch to it, this is the command to use. Git checkout -b, and then the name of the branch. Let's go and do it. So we're going to say git checkout -b. We can give this a new branch name. We can say login feature. And as you can see, it was able to create this new branch, and at the same time, it was able to switch to it. Let's see, git branch, and you can see that yes, this feature, this branch has been created. Clear this. We go back to the notes. Now, we're looking at how to delete the local branches. How do you delete the branches? You can do so using this git command, git branch -d, which is nothing. This is a flag that represents delete. So we come here and we say git. Let's first of all see how many branches we have. These are all the branches that we have created. Let's delete some of them. -d, we can delete. Let's start with master. That is gone. We can also now delete the next one. Let's say we want to delete the shopping cart. That is gone. Let's say we want to delete the dev -shopping cart. That is gone. Let's say we want to come here and delete main. No main, I still want to keep main. But exactly you get the concept. So Git